So this is a 2017 Seadoo Spark and also a 2007 Seadoo GTI. These things have been sitting for a very long time. There's actually an ant nest in this whole entire ski. Here is fire extinguisher, gas cap is loose, and it looks like we have some trees growing in the seat here. That thing says 43 hours. Uh-oh. Why is the starter out? So it looks like the top was off of this thing because all this is nasty. All of these valve cover bolts are all loose. Oh man, that is not good. There's a lot of rust on these valves. These cylinders and pistons look absolutely horrible. That rust is pretty thick on there. There's a lot of junk in there. I believe this is basically your oil sump right here. Yeah, that looks absolutely disgusting. There's the bottom of our crank pan. It just looks like regular wear. Because some of these rings are kind of stuck in there. All right, finally. You can see all the rust that was in there. $200, perfect. We still have to get all this cleaned up, which in order to do that, we're gonna have to pull all this out. We have to get all these wires hooked up and all this water cleaned out of here to where we can pressure wash and clean everything. So this body has also been sitting out here, so we got to get all this cleaned up. And we still have this whole other ski to work on. And as you can see, it has been breeding mosquitoes here, sitting and waiting on its turn to get put back together. We still got to install a new pump here. There was ants living in this machine, so we'll have to get all that cleaned out of there. Let's get some of this stuff removed. Alright, before we go any further with cleaning the ski, let's just go ahead and pull these plugs out, see what they're looking like in here. Oh man, that doesn't look good. It's not like horribly bad, but there's definitely some water around there. Let's look at these other ones. Oh my gosh. Yep, that thing is nasty. Alright, let's see what number 3 looks like. I mean, these things look like they were sitting at the bottom of a lake. Oh wow. Yep, that thing is full of rusty water. Alright, let's see what comes out of these. Rusty water. Rusty water. Lots of rusty water. Oh my gosh. Let's see if we can get as much of that water out as we can. Alright, I'm just going to fill these cylinders up with some PB Blaster. And maybe there's some miracle we can save it. So before we put the engine back in the spark, I want to see if we can go ahead and get this engine running. It's in really bad shape with all the water and rust in there. I just want to see if there's any possible way that this thing's going to run again without pulling the entire engine out and basically doing the same thing we did to the spark engine. Go ahead and hook it up. From the condition of this hole, I'm almost thinking that this thing was found at the bottom of a lake. Alright, let's see what happens here. So as you can see, a lot of water and PB Blaster came out. Yeah, there's still tons of stuff in there. Yeah, it's filthy. Just gonna pour a little bit of gasoline down each cylinder. Maybe that will help dry them up. Flush some of that stuff out of there. Let's try and get this gas hose off. That way I can drain the old fuel. Man, there's no room to work in here. Come on now. see if we can get that old fuel out of there. Well, I guess there's no gas in it. That explains why the fuel pump kept running. Alright, went ahead and got some new plugs. Here is a nice comparison. That old one looked pretty bad. Get some gas in this thing. Alright, see what happens. Get that fuel pump priming. Alright, let's give it a try. Try it again. I heard it hit one time there. I heard it hit another time. Let's try it again. It's trying. Yeah. All right. That's promising. All right, let's try this one more time here. All right. I could not believe it with all that rust and water in there. That is awesome. I'm not gonna run it too long out of the water. I might hook a hose up to it though. I still got to get this pump put in here. Let's just crank it up one more time. All right, let's get a water hose hooked up so we can actually crank this engine up and warm it up and change the oil. I did notice that this plastic retainer thing is broke, and it broke off inside this housing, so I'll have to get a new one of these and get this old one out. And this is basically your reverse lever here, and there's a rubber seal on that, and that keeps water from getting in the hole. That oil doesn't look too clean. So these things obviously don't have any kind of drain plug, so we're gonna have to use our fluid extractor here, and we're just gonna go down the dipstick tube. There we go. That stuff looks pretty gross. So while that's draining, let's go ahead and take a look at this oil filter. So yeah, this filter is pretty nasty. And unfortunately I do see some small metal shavings in there. I went ahead and cleaned this old filter out so I can do a couple engine flushes with it, and it's not looking good. There's a pretty good bit of metal in it. A lot of that's water, but up here you can see That's a lot of metal. I'm really hoping that's more from break-in. Either way it goes, we can't do nothing about it now. Let's go ahead and get this engine flushed out. Let's see what this old oil looks like. That stuff's like mud oil. Yeah, that's some nasty stuff right there. Lots of water and other junk in it. Alright, let's get some oil in this thing. That looks good. Get these old O-rings off. This one right here is really crusty. Some new O-rings. Check this oil again. Yeah, see, it's still dirty, so we're gonna have to flush this thing a couple times. Alright, let's see what this filter looks like. I'm not really seeing any metal in it, which is good, but the oil looks pretty crappy. Got a new filter here. So here's our impeller. You can see this wear ring is really bad. All this is melted plastic, so it's been wearing into it really well. And I don't know why it's so bad. And not to mention this thing only has 43 hours. So it does spin freely. Let's see if we can get this wear ring out of here. Sometimes these things can be a real pain. You can see how wore out that thing was. Man, look at them grooves. It's hard to imagine with such low hours. The bearings feel tight in there. I got some new grease ordered for this. It takes a certain kind, and got some other parts for it. So while we are waiting for the parts to come in for the GTI, I guess we can go ahead and start putting the Seadoo Spark back together. But before we do that, we still got a couple more parts that we got to get cleaned up first. We got some spider webs in there. This thing has definitely not been ran in a while. I mean, it doesn't sound bad. Let's see what these bearings look like. Oh yeah, looks like we got some water in there. So I think this jet pump was just kind of sitting in the water because it didn't really mix with the grease. The grease is still the same factory color. It's almost like it was just kind of sitting in the water for a long time, but never ran with water in it. That's some pretty good grease though. It did not absorb any water. Went ahead and picked up some of this jet pump grease. So you're supposed to use one full tube per jet pump. For now, it's ready to go. So I'm also going to do the same exact thing for this GTI housing. I'll get all this stuff cleaned out, and I'm just going to replace the grease for now. So you can see this is some of the original grease color. It's hard to tell if that has water in it or not. It definitely looks like some pretty massive diarrhea. Now let's get all these old bolts removed from the broken jet pump. So I picked up a used jet pump. Let's get this jet pump installed. Put just a little bit of anti-seize on these bolts. So I'm going to put just a little bit of 515 on this flange. It actually calls for no RTV and no gasket material here, which is kind of strange, but I'm just going to put a little bit here. Alright guys, this thing is almost ready to go. I got a brand new battery here. Alright, this thing's almost ready. Let's just get it topped off with some oil here. Let's get some fresh gas in it. Alright, so we are good on oil, we got gas, we have a good battery. Let's hook the key up and see what happens. Okay, nothing so far. Let me hit the start button here. There we go. 63 hours. Okay, that's not bad at all. Let's hit the start button and see what happens. Alright, so nothing's happening. It's a bummer. So yeah, it is doing absolutely nothing. I'm not hearing any kind of fire at all. Alright, so I know this is probably not the best idea to do, but I don't think the fuel pump is turning on. I think it's not getting fuel, so I'm going to try a little bit of starting fluid and just see what that does. Yeah, see, it's not getting fuel. That at least makes me happy right there, because maybe it's just a fuel pump or something. I mean, this thing was sitting a very long time, so maybe the fuel pump is just kind of stopped up. All right, let's see if this fuel pump is actually working. I'm not hearing it turn on, so I want to just double check that. All right, I'm just going to do a quick check to see if fuel comes out of the fuel pump. Yeah, I'm not seeing any fuel coming out of there. So let's go ahead and take this fuel pump off. After sitting all those years with that old stale fuel, I wouldn't be surprised if this thing's bad. Oh wow, yeah, that gasket is nasty. Well, that's not good. The fuel pump itself doesn't look bad. You can see there's a ton of junk down in that fuel tank, and I actually already cleaned a lot of it out, and I poured a lot of fresh fuel in there, but there was still some old stuff left. So I guess I'm gonna have to go ahead and pump all that fuel out and get it all cleaned up. Yeah, this fuel filter pretty nasty in there. Yeah, it just kind of breaks apart. So the thing is either clogged up, that thing just literally disintegrated. There's our little fuel pump, and it's got all kinds of little worms and stuff stuck in there. How in the world did little worms get in there? Hopefully it didn't clog the injectors all up. And there's all these little worm maggot looking things. Those actually are the same things that clogged the fuel pump and filter on my Honda Goldwing. Alright, so let's go ahead and test this fuel pump. Thing sounded like it had a huge clog in there. Get it hooked up to this battery. Let's see what happens. Yeah, absolutely nothing. So this fuel pump's bad. Wonder if I can free it up though. Oh, it's trying. It's trying, but it's not spinning. Hear that? It's buzzing. I can see the little impeller down in there. And it was trying to spin, but it's locked up. I got a little pick here. See if I can turn that thing a couple times. Definitely freeing up. Let's see if it spins now. Look at there. It's working now. Oh, that's sweet. Seems to work good now. Let's get it reinstalled. See if this thing will crank up. Get all these worms blowing out of here. Look how nasty that bottom filter is in there. That thing is full of crap. Yep. I will buy a new fuel filter for it, or at least new screens and a pump. Alright, so since this thing doesn't have a filter on it anymore, I just got some of this, one of these aquarium filters, and that should work. Now let's get that fuel tank cleaned out. We'll get this reinstalled. So I found a O-ring gasket. Actually came off another fuel pump I had. It might work, but I did order a new one. All right, let's see if this works. Alright, and that just might work. Alright, let's see if this thing cranks up now. Well, there you go. That thing didn't even smoke at all. I cannot believe that. Alright, well, it seems like it's fixed. Let's finish getting it all put back together. Got to get all these screws down. Let's start it up one more time. It cranks right up. Awesome. Alright, let's get some coolant in this thing. little treat? Huh? You love your treats, huh? Hey, baby. Alright, so this handle is all broken, so let's see if we can get it swapped out. Got a new one here. There we go. Alright guys, I'm not sure what's going on. This thing was running totally fine, but now it's not wanting to run right. So it's barely cranking, and sometimes it won't even crank, and when it does, it just kind of cuts off after a little bit. I'm kind of suspecting a fuel issue, and I pulled some fuel, and that stuff looks horrible. I'm gonna keep draining some out of here, checking it. Yeah, that fuel looks really bad, and there's a lot of water in it. So I'm guessing that is probably my issue. Well, I would have to say this is probably our issue, because that looks absolutely horrible. The fuel has even degraded this plastic float, and this filter is just completely falling apart. And I would have checked all this, but when I first checked the fuel, it was like completely empty, so I figured the tank was just dry, and I just kind of figured that everything was okay. So, but I guess all this kind of got into the injectors and clogged everything up, so it looks like I need a new fuel pump. All right, let's check out what this fuel tank looks like. Wow. This is after I poured about 10 gallons of fresh fuel in this fuel tank. Yeah, that is really bad in there. Let's get all that drained out of there. I mean, I don't even know what this is. Was this like the plastic bottom to this thing, or was it the filter? I'll look down in there. That is just like pure crap in there. I am just so surprised that this fuel pump was actually even running. It was pumping fuel, which is just mind-boggling. There's still a lot of stuff down in there. Alright, so I went ahead and bought a used fuel pump off eBay. Also bought a new fuel filter and some filters just in case. They said this one was working great, but I'm going to go ahead and take it apart just to be sure. So yeah, that pump looks kind of crappy, so does this filter, so probably a good idea to change it. Right. And there we go. We're gonna get some fresh non-ethanol fuel in here. Alright, so I got these injectors cleaned out, but they were really gummed up. So I want to make sure that they are clean before I get them fully installed. So let's try them out. Okay guys, here we go. All right.
Who's the little buddy? Who's the little buddy? Oh, the little dummies. Hey. Who's the cutie pie?
All right, guys, I think we are finally done. So let's go ahead and test these guys out. All right, guys, here we go. This thing has 2 modes, I believe, as well. So we're in touring mode right now. Yeah, this thing's running great. Yeah, this thing's awesome. This thing's got some pep to it. I'm gonna break it in a little bit before I go crazy on it though. smoke or anything like that. So that's pretty awesome. My son drove it a little bit, so he kind of already broke it in. So this thing's probably good to, you know, give it a little bit. So I'm gonna put it in sport mode here. Let's see what that does. So far, this thing is running great. I have absolutely no complaints with it. It is a blast to drive. And I'm surprised it didn't smoke or anything. I just can't believe it with all that rust and how this engine was completely locked up, full of water for years, that today it's running and running really well. This thing starts right up. Well, basically pop a wheelie up out of the water.